Do not buy the Canon EOS RP, and I'll tell you why. What up, YouTube? My name is CJ. This is CJ Knows Tech, where I love to talk tech and anything creative. And don't buy it, okay? I'm telling you, do not buy it. Canon just dropped their mirrorless, lower end mirrorless camera called the EOS RP. So why in the world is the Sony fanboy talking about Canon? Well, guess what? I'm not just a Sony fanboy. I do love Sony cameras. That is the ecosystem I prescribe to. Sony a7 III right there. What up though? Look at that. Look at that. Look at that butter. That 4K. And this right here, what I'm recording this main video on is the Canon EOS M50. Yes, your boy got another Canon camera. I started off with the G7X Mark II. That was my first introduction to the Canon ecosystem, and now I'm coming with a step up with the EOS M50. So far, the capabilities that I've seen out of this camera alone, and then you think about the capabilities that cameras like the Sony offer, and then you look at the price points. You take the Canon price points, you take the Sony price points, you take the features, what's offered, and you do a comparison, and that right there is exactly why I tell you do not get that EOS RP. And I'm not even hating. I was actually looking to grab one. I wanted to try it out. I'm like waiting for Canon to be competitive or to compete with Sony, and they have yet to do that. I know they dropped the EOS R, which was supposed to be something to go at the a7 III, but we won't even go down that. Yeah. Now let's talk about the reasons why I'm telling you I don't think you should get a Canon EOS RP. Number one, you do not have the option to shoot full HD. Come on now, full HD in 24 frames per second. That doesn't make that. I don't even see where that makes sense. That makes absolutely no sense to me. Like, for real, explain it to me. Why would you force everyone who grabs that camera to have 30 frames per second? Why? Why? I don't shoot everything in 30 frames per second. I shoot everything in 24 frames per second. Unless I'm doing slow motion, I would go to 120 or maybe 60. But never do I do 30. Now, that there's some people that 30 frames per second is popular with, but it's just not me. Like, why would you take away the cinematic frame rate, the standard frame rate of motion blur? Why? Why Canon? Why? Sony giving it to me at cheaper than that. All right, we'll leave that one alone. Next, there's no in-body image stabilization. Now, granted, yeah, Sony just released the a6400, no in-body image stabilization. Canon cameras are known for not having in-body image stabilization. The EOS M50 I have right here does not have in-body image stabilization, but that Sony a7 III right there, which is only $700 more, has in-body image stabilization, 5-axis. Something to think about. Now, another reason, there's only a clean HDMI out in HD. From what I've heard or seen, now I could be wrong, but I don't know if you're gonna get the 4K. Anyways, so that's just something that I heard. Not 100% on that one, but if that's 100% true. Another reason not to get the EOS RP is the full lens, the native lens system for the EOS R system and RP. It's extremely expensive. So for this to be such a entry-level, basic, full-frame, mirrorless camera from Canon, you're gonna suck the funds of the life out of the basic intro console. I don't understand. It doesn't really make sense. Now, granted, I know, Sony, your lenses ain't cheap either. These Canon lenses at full frame, these new ones for the mirrorless, they making Sony look okay. Another reason the EOS RP is not a great selection, especially if you're trying to get into shooting video. A lot of my perspective on this is video. There's no C-Log. Sony gives you S-Log on every single Sony camera. 6300, 6500, the new 6400, a7 III, a7, like, come on. Why can't we get C-Log? It's a full frame mirrorless Canon and you're not giving me C-Log? Absolutely unacceptable. Here's another thing. Look, Sony shooters, I'm gonna refer to this camera as the Sony shooters. Look, man, they was throwing jabs at us for this for a long time. The rolling shutter in 4K, it is absolutely nuts, disgusting. Jared Poland posted it and he let you know that it is almost unusable. Another thing, Canon is refusing to add into the lower level cameras, I guess forcing you to have to go up to the upper level, not giving us the budget all around full accessory pack that Sony gives us, is the lack of dual pixel autofocus in 4K. Why is that so hard to give us on cameras. I get dual pixel, I get the best autofocus capabilities on the lower end Sonys, or just as equal to as the A9 with the A7 III. Yet Canon won't give us dual pixel autofocus at 4K. I don't know, man. I don't get it. You know, I guess this means more. I don't know. Let us know, Canon. Here's another thing. Oh my goodness. There is no 120 frames per second shooting on the EOS RP. Like what? Come on, bro. Hey, bro. The lower level Sonys, we get 120 frames per second on the A6300, 6500, and so on. Come on. What? So the only slow motion you're gonna get is 60 frames per second, and that's only in 1080, and that's basic slow motion. But nowadays, in the world of the slow motion epidemic, 120 is a must. You're cutting out a lot of potential buyers by not offering that feature, Canon. You know, I'm getting tired of complaining. I'm not really pessimistic, so this is gonna be the last thing I'm gonna point out is the battery. It's using the same battery as like a Rebel camera. Now, granted, I know Sony users, we all know about the FW50, and Sony even put it in the A6400, but at least that whole system is optimized to give you better battery life from the FW50 than we've seen before. Yet you're getting the Rebel battery inside of this new full frame mirrorless camera. Now, I saw on Twitter from I'm Patrick, he tweeted out just saying that the EOS RP is nothing more than a 4K Rebel camera, and that's what it's looking like. 4K mirrorless Rebel camera with a lot of restrictions. It doesn't have to be that way, especially at that price point, because I could take my money to Sony, spend the same amount or less, and get far more. So why would I go with the EOS RP or even the EOS R? Like, you're not giving me the value for my money, Canon, in these recent releases. And then no in-body image stabilization. You say it's coming in the future, blah, blah. But at that level, or even at any camera level, or anyways, I'm about done with Canon and their nonsense. Now, I will say this EOS M50 is looking pretty nice lately. I've been using it, I've been enjoying it. Review coming soon, but I just had to talk about the EOS RP because it was a letdown for me as someone who has been dibbling and dabbling in the Canon ecosystem. You keeping me from going any further, Canon. So fix that, get it together, take notes from Sony, and understand what the consumers want and how to feed the consumers. Don't worry, your babies, your high price babies up top, they'll be okay. All right.